Welcome back. I took a little time off. I've been going through some things in the news. If you haven't read, this video actually has a lot to do with that as well. I was almost going to title this like Mission Impossible with like a question mark, because one is clearly all about mission-oriented companies and whether that mission is achievable and whether it's like worth your effort and time to invest in a like early stage company. In any case, here we are. Let me start off by saying that it's gonna sound like for maybe the first quarter, half, third, whatever of the conversation that I'm like, don't do it. But that's really not what I'm trying to say by any means, because I've clearly spent a lot of my personal time in mission-oriented companies. I started one myself, and they are amazing. You work with the most amazing people that really just want to make a difference in the world. You feel, valued for your effort. It feels like you're just not a cog in the wheel, but like you're doing something important and worth it. Our time is limited. Like, time is literally the most valuable resource that we have, bar none, right? And like where you invest your time, particularly in a work life, is really, really important. And mission-oriented companies can be a great place to feel great about what you're doing, feel like you're making a difference, and then get a good salary as well. But I won't say there's a downside, but I will say there's the opportunity for you to be taken advantage of because of the mission. And like, these again are all my lived experiences that I'm talking about, that I just want to share with you all to help you be a little bit more informed as you're considering either joining, starting, whatever. Okay? All right. So first things first, I think I almost kind of want to say, like, think about the mission-oriented company that's in mind or that you're considering as an investor might. So what I mean by that is, like, I want you to do the same due diligence as if you were investing $100,000 of your own money into this company. Like, that's the kind of level that I want you to think about it with, because yes, you would be getting a paycheck from it, but like, again, your time, you're investing 6, 12 months, 18 months of your time into this company. Like, is it worth that investment, that time investment? And there's gonna be, trade-offs in that, like, yes, you'll get a lot of experience, but you can also get that experience elsewhere without dealing with the stress and the craziness of founders and all this type of stuff. But like, these are some of the trade-offs. Okay, so first things first, look at the founder. Does the founder have any expertise in this area? And that's not to say that, like, founders that don't have expertise, avoid them at all costs, because I'm working with a founder right now that they have felt like the pain themselves, the problem that they're solving, they have felt it personally. While they may not have like extensive experience, they have their lived experience, which is important. But again, take that with all a grain of salt. If your founder does not have 10 years of experience building financial institutions before, building retail stores before, or building AI sciencey things before, and neither does anyone in their C-suite, that's a little bit of a, maybe an orange flag. Then you'll have to kind of figure out, like, who around them has the expertise, because somebody need to have it. Quite frankly, if the founder ain't got it, somebody advising them, somebody on the team has to have it, and they have to be someone that's important. Sounds bad, but like important enough that the founder will listen to, because there's going to be a lot of people around the founder. The investors, the advisors, all going to tell them all types of crazy shit. And I've seen like a founder be literally pulled in all these different directions, not really knowing what to do or who to listen to. It's very similar when you think about it to like a product manager, because you have all these stakeholders and you have to really distill and discern what's most important. What are you gonna take into account, what you're not gonna take into account, and the same thing for a founder. But anyway, so if the founder doesn't have the expertise, does someone in their circle have that expertise, or are you bringing that expertise? Like, that's another thing. And then if you are bringing that expertise, understand how that founder works with folks that are experts. Like, just because you may be the expert in a situation does not mean that they're gonna listen to you. And you need to know that going in, quite frankly. I've literally had that. Like, By the time I joined Daylight, which was a digital bank for the LGBTQ+, I had built a couple banks by that point, right? I was like the first product manager or the VP of product or whatever at a couple of digital banks before that, and had gone through this process. So like, even though I was the expert in the room telling them like, this don't make sense, that contract ain't gonna make money, blah, 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 that didn't mean they listened to me. And that was a surefire sign that like, this is not the place for you. The mission is not enough. Not because they won't listen to me like at that, but like if you brought me on for my expertise and then chose not to listen to it, and you would rather run your company into the ground, like that is also just not a place where I want to invest my time or my money. Like, again, my money is my time. I don't want to invest in that type of situation. Like, there's no positives I see coming out of that, right? So look at the founder, see who their circle is, and understand how they take advice, how they listen to expertise. And I also caveat to say that like, just because expertise is a little bit of like a double-edged sword in the sense that if someone has done something for 50 years, 25 years, 30 years, it may not be the exact thing that you want to do moving forward if you're trying to modernize it, if you're trying to disrupt an industry, all that stuff. So take years of you could probably look back at a lot of blogs. Like, I don't really like years of experience, but like, if you have a specific expertise that's a recent thing that you have operated, that you have built, that you have done, as opposed to overseeing or blah, 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 then like, I would put a little bit more emphasis on that type of expertise than just like book expertise and I've been in the industry for like 25 years type of thing. Like, that type of expertise can help you avoid like regulatory pitfalls if that's a thing that like impacts the business. But the like lived experience expertise, recently lived experience expertise is gonna be the ones that are like gonna accelerate your growth, because they've literally done all the wrong things potentially that you don't have to do. So like, really listen to them. Like, that's why you have them. Okay, so then the second thing is when you're listening to the pitch, because all job interviews at early stage companies are essentially the founder pitching you. Once you listen to their pitch, emotions aside, does what they're saying make sense? Like, at all. Not because you want it to make sense, but like, does it in and of itself make sense? And when you ask follow-up questions, do they answer the question directly? Do they spin it and talk about what they want to? Do they lean into like the nicey, fun, blah, 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 blah parts of what they've accomplished or maybe not accomplished? And how do they talk about the challenges that they face? Like, is it realistic, or are they out there being like, oh, we don't have any competition? And you're like, bruh, yeah, you do, you know? And if they're like, well, but we don't have anything in like this, no, These are all red flags, not even orange flags. They're all like waving red, gigantic capital R red flags in that respect. Because like what I found is that the mission leans on your emotions. That's why you're there. That's why you join the company. That's why you endure during the crazy shit that happens in an early stage startup, is because of that mission. But before you like jump in blindly, I really want you to like think like rationally about like, is this gonna be a business in a year? And if that doesn't matter to you and you're just there about the experience, then like, by all means, go in with your eyes open. That is probably gonna be, you're gonna learn. You may learn a lot. You may not learn the good things, but you may learn a lot. You'll definitely experience a lot. But there may not be an ROI at the end of the day. But if you're in it for like to do, you know how they say like, you can do good and do well. I don't know how much I like that, but you can essentially do both. Like, there is an opportunity for you to make progress against a mission, build your career, and make some good money along the way. Then you do really want to make sure that you're investing your time in the right places. Excuse me. And a good place, like I mentioned, to focus in on that is like, does this business plan make sense? Is it something that's actually could it work? And not could it work in like anything could work if you manifest it. It like, could it work realistically? Like, without half of the money and half of the people, like, could it actually work? Is it a problem that needs to be solved? Is there value here? Will people pay for this? All of this stuff. And there's gonna be a bit that you won't know for certain, but like do your own due diligence a little bit about that company, and is it worth your time? Because again, what I'm trying to avoid, or what I'm trying to share with you, is that I've seen, myself included, a lot of people be bought into the mission and be set up for failure for lots of different reasons. And it's, to be honest, it's just not worth emotional and mental trauma. It's not. Like, I'd rather you get like a cog in the wheel type of job, make a really good paycheck, and then with your free time and your free energy that you're not delving into your job, then do something mission oriented, right? that would be my gift to you. Like that was what I would want for you, as opposed to like going into something that you think is going to be great, that you think is going to be nirvana. In my case, I thought it like a couple companies like this could be Wakanda for me. And then it changes you in a way that like takes something away from you that can't be given back. I'm just gonna bring my laptop right here because it's that type of morning. Okay, so asking these questions: what have they accomplished thus far? How do they talk about the challenges that they face? What are their plans to achieve that mission or vision? It likely won't be fleshed out, since that's partly why they're probably talking to you at this stage. But have they thought about it? And this is, I'll be honest, this is a big one, because like I found that some companies or some founders can think about the end goal that they want, but they have no idea how to get there. And like, I don't need you to give me like a detailed Gantt chart or project plan on how to get there, but I need you to understand some of the big milestones and steps, because like that's gonna lead to who you hire, when you hire them. Do you have enough money to get there? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you want to become a bank and like physical locations across the US, then like there are some key milestones that you need to hit along the way. And do you have enough funding, or what do you need to do to show to get that funding in order to get there? Like, you can't just be winging it from like point A to point Z. You're gonna need to understand some milestones along the way. And if they haven't thought about it, then like, so what have they even thought about? What evidence do they have that supports their solve will actually do the thing that they're trying to convince you of? And that's a big one, because I think there's a lot of these like companies can get funded on hypotheses, right? Like, we think by giving financial education in rap format, people will change their behavior, whatever the premise is, right? But what's the evidence to that? I've joined more than one company. I won't say how many. I joined more than one company that by the time I joined the company, they hadn't done any user research whatsoever. So they got funded. They got funded without doing user research. So like, they have no idea if like what they thought was gonna happen was like even realistic. And at times I was like, and granted, this was during like, you know, the bull phase of the market. Everyone was getting funded for everything. And like, to a certain extent, I'm happy that that happened. Because a lot of people got opportunities that they probably wouldn't otherwise. But like, it is up to, particularly for mission-oriented companies, like it's really up to the founders to make sure that they're putting their best effort forward and making the most use out of what they have raised, because that's gonna be a data point for others in the future of to like why I should or should not invest in another company with demographic founder in the future, right? So like, unfortunately, it's just the reality, particularly that underrepresented people deal with, about being a representative for their, you know, identity. But like, when it comes to VC, in my opinion, that just happens to be true, right? And it's unfortunate, but yeah, I've already seen one company fail. Another one's on the way. One company fail, and I can 100% say, at least in my opinion, that like that failure will absolutely impact other Black founders in the future, 110%. And it's a real shame. It's a real shame, because it didn't have to be that way. But anyway, that's a whole other story. I might have to have that story, but with a glass of wine. In any case, as you're, again, thinking through the story, like, does it make sense? Is there any evidence to support like what they think is gonna happen, or is it just someone's wish and desire? Because like, you're not there to like just fulfill someone's wishes. Like, you're there to build a business. You're there to progress a mission, a vision, like something, right? Something tangible that you want to change in the world. And there should have been some due diligence done by the founders in order to get to the point where they're talking to you. And if you can't see the path forward, if you can't see the next, like let's say 2 steps, and they seem feasible, they seem realistic, then like you may just want to like sit back and wait, to be frank. Like maybe you sit back and wait for 6 months and see what happens to them, and then re-engage when they've gotten a little bit further along. And some founders may hear this and be like, don't give this information because I need somebody now. And it's like, but you also need to do your part, right? Like you can't just be like, believe me, without showing your work. Like this is time for you to show your fucking work. Because if I'm giving up opportunities, if I'm going to commit to, the stress, the time investment, the crazy things that switch all the time, without the same level of like skin in the game, because like you own 100% or you own 80% or you own 50% of this company, and I potentially own like 0.1% after a year. Like we're not the same, right? So you gonna need to bring a lot more to the table to convince me to leave a good job or to convince me to say no to a stable job in order for us to like do what we're supposed to be doing, right? And then me as an employee, I have to trust that you will stick to what you said that you were going to do in that interview process, right? You were going to actually choose the mission over yourself. Like you were going to make sure that you hire the right people for the job and not your friends. You're gonna make sure that you don't embezzle money. You're gonna make sure all of those things. I have to trust you. I'm coming like, you see what I'm saying? Like I get like the fear maybe from some founders, but like you gotta come correct if you are going to take someone else's opportunities away. And I'm not saying take it because you're stealing it, but like convince them to do something and then you don't follow through. Like this isn't just Monopoly money, or this isn't just like playing chess or checkers or anything like that. Like this, when you hire someone into a company, like they're depending on you for their livelihood, right? And in exchange, they're giving you really good work. And if you can't value any of that, and if you don't put the same amount of weight on it as they do, then like, anywho. Okay, so next on, because I'm just venting. So don't just buy into the future, really understand the present. So the future is all what they're going to sell you, because that's generally all that they have, right? What you also want to understand is like, what are they doing today? What's currently happening? Whether it's just a one-person startup and it's just them and you're the first hire, like what are you doing on a constant basis outside of recruiting? Are you doing user interviews? Are you like working with the dev shop? Are you like, what are you doing to progress this thing? And does it make sense given the resources that you have, right? Are you selling with a prototype? Are you like, just like understand what's going on in the present day, to see if it's gonna be a good representation of like what you would align with or what you think is the right thing to do at that stage, because that will help kind of show you potentially what they would do in the future. Like it's not gonna be 100%, but like it's better than nothing, right? So understand what they're doing right now. And then the last thing that I'll say, before maybe I'll just kind of go on a tangent, is while the mission is what gets you excited, it gets you bought in, it perks up your eyebrows and like all the things, ensure that you're getting paid fairly. The mission is not an excuse to be overworked and underpaid, in my opinion. It's not. This is not indentured servitude. This is not like not your ego, but a guilty conscience. You're making up for a guilty conscience for X, Y, and Z. No. Like if you're in a space where like you don't need the money, then by all means be like, I'll take more equity and less money so they can, they can extend their runway, all of those things. But if you need the job and you need to get paid fairly, then get paid fairly. Because otherwise, then maybe this is just not the company for you. Maybe they're not at the right stage. Give them 6 months until they raise around, or they show progress, or they X, Y, and Z, and then you can come back, because like you adding on additional stress of how you're gonna support yourself on top of working for a fucking startup, like it's not where it's at, boo. Like it's just not. And unfortunately, a lot of these like mission-oriented companies, they will, and I'll throw nonprofits in there as well, because when I worked for a nonprofit, I saw how underpaid a lot of those folks were. And like, it was all in like, well, this is in service to the mission, because if we pay you pennies, then we can put more into the mission. And it's like, but you can't get there without me, right? But that's why you have me, right? Because you can't get there by yourself. Because if you could, then you would have. But because you need me to work 18-hour days on like, $20,000 a year, like that's not okay. Like you should be able to support yourself and not have that additional stress and have to get another job, right? Like I worked at a startup where people were, again, this is in tech, and people had second jobs. Like that should never be a fucking case. I'm sorry. I'm just my opinion, but like that should never be the case. So do not let anyone convince you that working for a mission-oriented company means that they can underpay you and overwork you and have all these expectations on you. Because again, you are not in the same, you do not have the same skin in the game as the founder, right? The founder, if this blows up and makes billions of dollars, you're not getting those billions of dollars. You're not. You get with your 0.005% of the company, you're not getting billions of dollars. And while it's not all about the dollars, you need to make sure that you are living, that you can live well enough to support being a early stage startup person. Because it's very stressful. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. But like a year in a startup is like 5 years in like a bigger organization, because there's just so much that happens in a given week that like you need that self-care. You need to be able to afford therapy. You need to be able to afford like real food and not live off of takeout, because like the damage that you do to your body with the stress, with the overworking, with the no light, working inside all day without getting you know what I mean? All of that shit takes a toll on your body. That takes a toll on your psyche and your mental health. So you like the least that they can do is pay you well enough so that you can get really good fruits and vegetables, that you can get the supplements that you need, that you can get the massage when you need to, or go to therapy twice a week like I do. Like you need to, like all those things, so that you can come and do your best work at that startup to progress that mission. So don't let them convince you otherwise, and particularly if you're living like in an expensive city, like, New York, New York. And is there anything else? Oh yeah, and then if they don't pay for or cover your insurance, again, they need to up your pay to cover some of that. And I know there's going to be a lot of conversations about like, well, this is market rate and blah blah blah, and this is where you'll have to. This is where I want you to be strong as much as you're able to, depending on like what your personal situation is. Because and I'm saying in a generic they, and more of like the negative they, in the sense that they feel like, well, if you won't willingly be underpaid and overworked, then I'll find someone else who will. And one, that's a sign that this place isn't for you. Two, it's probably a sign that they're actually not really about the mission, because likely the people that they in these early stages that they attract are aligned to the identities of the mission that they're trying to progress. So if they're if they're saying outwardly, we love Black people, but internally we treat them like shit, like that is a fucking red sign. Like that just don't do it. Don't do it, because they're already telling you they don't really care about the mission. Like that's what they're telling you with that statement. Like if we can't pay you a living wage, a good wage for the amount of investment that you're going to put into this company, but we say we love Black people, or we say we love natives, or we say we love queer people, or whatever the case may be, like that's a red fucking sign. Because they clearly don't, if they're willing to like exploit y'all and exploit your work and exploit your effort, and more importantly like feed on your emotions in order to get that shit done for their own whatever. Don't do it. And warn others. To be frank, that is like actually one of the biggest regrets that I have, is that while I know it's not my responsibility to warn others, I wish I would have. Because I don't want, and that's partly why I'm doing this, I don't want others to make the exact same mistakes that I did, make other mistakes or learn from my mistakes. Not even all mistakes, like But like, I wish I would have been more intentional about like, hey sis, I know you're considering this job, but here's the real tea. From there, do with it what you will, but like keep an eye out for these types of things, because it's not gonna be a good place for you. Or like keep your options open, because so-and-so is gonna turn on you, or they ain't got no real money, or whatever the case may be. Because I just feel, particularly for these mission-oriented companies, like I say, they attract the people whose identity they're trying to help. And I don't want to see my other brothers, sisters, family going through additional trauma unnecessarily. And that's really what it comes down to be. Like, I don't, and it hurts more coming from an organization that says it's supposed to help you. Anyway, okay, I mean, try not to end on a negative note. So let's say the founder, the team that you're talking to doesn't do any of that shit, right? They're upfront, they know what they're doing, they're focused, they have the data to back it up, and you're talking to people. And like, check out one of the other videos about like interviewing, like asking some of those like really deep questions, or even like the conversation around narcissistic boss, like to figure out what type of leader that you're working with. But if all of that passes muster and like it feels good, and you're still excited about it, then by all means, fam, like get in there and like change the world in whatever little way that you can. Because like even if at the end of the day the thing doesn't work out, at least you spent a good amount of time, however long that time is, doing something that was meaningful to you, right? Learning something new, or expanding your skill set in some type of way. And that just somehow leads you to find other things to get to actually where you really need to be to blossom and to bloom, quite frankly. Because I feel like if I think about my own lived experience, I hit a lot of like speed bumps along the way, but I do feel like I'm at the point, 5-6 years later, that I did find an organization that is mission oriented, where I can trust the founder. And I've been there 6-7 months, depending on the time you see this, a significant amount of time where it's like, where I'm like still waiting for the other shoe to drop, but it hasn't. And I'm like, okay, I can kind of start to like relax, that like, okay, I think I learned enough in those previous places where I did the due diligence well to qualify a good company and feel like that's where I'm at, Any case. All right, so that's kind of the conversation I just wanted to have today, was about these mission-oriented companies. I know the job market right now in spring of 2023 is crazy because layoffs are still happening and everyone is desperate for a job. And again, this is me sitting from a very privileged place of having a secure job. But if you can, try to avoid and be really discerning about the companies that you do join, because what I can tell you is that the trade-offs for your mental and physical health are crazy. And again, from a privileged place, like, of course you need to have like your basics covered, but if you take a job in like a seemingly toxic environment, keep looking until you find the better place for you. Because it's worth it. It's worth it in the end. Anyway, okay. Talk to you later. Bye.